Good evening, traders. This is CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku wrap for the week ending December 23rd. This is Monday, December 26th. The markets are closed today, so I took a little extra day off. But I'm getting ready to get ready for the next week. Of course, it's going to be probably a really low volume week as it's a 4-day weekend. We also have the New Year's holiday coming up. So traditionally this week is always kind of not worth trading in certain ways. So I recommend taking it off. Why not? But I'm going to do the video nonetheless. So starting off with the ES weekly, we see that we're still bullish in Always Ichimoku. We're bull flagging above the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen and the cloud. As far as details about the bullishness, the Tenkan-sen is above the Kijun-sen, which is what you want to see if you're in a bullish mode, and the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen are both over the cloud. So everything is 100% bullish on this chart. We do have a flat Tenkan-sen and a flat Kijun-sen below, suggesting that it's time for a little bit of reversion back towards the mean. In other words, some sideways action is appropriate here as we are somewhat far away from the cloud at this point. Basically, in Ichimoku charting, price action likes to, the cloud represents equilibrium, so price action likes to pull back towards the cloud once it gets kind of extended. Similar to a Bollinger Band concept, when price gets outside the Bollinger Bands, it wants to come back in. So, last week we put in a doji type candle with very small range, smaller range than last week. So the trend is still up. We did not get any confirmation of trend change to the downside. So I'm looking for more sideways price action. If we do get a pullback, we have this obvious prior resistance level, which has now turned support at around, let's see, we could call it 2184. So I'd be looking for that area to hold as support. These candle top areas could also hold as support on a pullback around 2212, 2213. But if we do get a full pullback to the Tenkan-sen, we're looking at 2150.75. When the new candle opens up for the new week, we could get a Tenkan-sen tipping up, reflecting the lack of selling here, but chances are it will still remain flat. We do have a nice rising cloud into the new year, and then a flattening out as we get into April and May. So we could make a new high shortly, and then get another pullback. But otherwise, there's no reason to suggest that we're going to see any major downside price action at the moment. Not that one can predict that anyway. Let's move on to crude. I still have my inverse head and shoulders set up, marked here. It has not been invalidated. We've been basically extending the right shoulder, which is not at all uncharacteristic of what crude does. It often does this kind of thing. So I definitely haven't ruled out the idea of this inverse head and shoulder actually making its measured move. 2 weeks ago, we closed above where I decided the neckline would be. You don't have to agree with my neckline. Nobody has to agree with my neckline. That's just where I liked it. So I think it's interesting that we put in a close above it, and then last week again we put in a close above it after putting in a very tight range. So we do have this gap area above that I've marked and I've been talking about for the last several weeks that begins at 54.90 and it ends at 56.50. So I would expect there's some possibility that it will act as resistance at that 54.90 level, so we'll be looking for that. And if it gets into that into the zone between those two levels, then I would probably expect the gap to fill up to 56.50. And then we could see what happens. We had a lot of consolidation previously before price sold off around the $60 level. It looked like we were bull flagging and making, perhaps those without Ichimoku might have thought we were going to move higher at this point, but since we had the benefit of the Ichimoku cloud, we knew that we were out under the cloud, so it was unlikely that we were going to get a breakout to the upside off this price action here over to the left. If we do get a pullback, we do have the Tenkan-sen and also a little prior gap here to offer as support. The Tenkan-sen is currently at 48.36, and the top of this little gap is at 48.66. So we can check out those potential levels of support if we do get a pullback to the downside. In order for this inverse head and shoulders pattern to be invalidated, we'd really need to like get below where I marked the right shoulder, like so below 40.50. But we're going to have a lot of notice if we have the Tenkan-sen, the Kijun-sen, and the cloud to keep an eye on before we get near that level. So I'll be talking to you about that later if we do get some bearishness in crude. All right, let's move on to the component or the index everybody's been talking about, the Dow. I'm looking at the Dow futures, not the actual Dow. Everybody's talking about Dow 20,000, Dow 20,000. I'm not really sure what that equals to on YM at the moment, but so we've been in it. We're still looking very bullish on the Dow. We are bull flagging and making higher highs. Last week's candle actually did make a new high, so we're still in a complete uptrend with a higher high and a higher low after after the last week's higher high and higher low from the prior week and the prior week. We've been trending up for a while on the Dow. We do have a flat Kijun-sen below as we're pretty far extended above the cloud, and we also have a Tenkan-sen that's starting to flatten out. It's not entirely flat yet. So we'll see when the new candle opens up. If the Tenkan-sen does go flat, then there'll be more of an incentive for price to come back towards the Tenkan-sen in a mean reversion type move. We are quite overbought on the RSI on the weekly time frame. That's important and significant. We haven't been overbought on weekly RSI for quite a while. Nothing here on the let me see if I can go a bit farther back for us. The last time we were overbought on RSI on the weekly YM was way back in 2013. How about that? So we really haven't been overbought in quite a long time. And of course, in this case, when we were overbought here, we didn't get much of a pullback. We got a little tiny pullback, and then we went much higher and got a little bit more overbought. Then we got a healthy little correction right here. Then we became overbought just a little bit again, and then got another healthy correction, and then that's it for the RSI being overbought. So going into the new year, we do have a healthy rising cloud, then similar to the ES flattening out as we get into the early spring months. So, but nothing bearish to think about there. Pullback, if we did get a major pullback target, if we did get a major correction, my pullback target would be the Tenkan-sen at 18,676. Let's look at the Russell. The Russell's not looking quite as bullish. We do have a flat Tenkan-sen and a flat Kijun-sen below already, and we do have a little drop off and a cloud twist coming up before we get a rising cloud. So it's a little precarious for the Russell for the next week or so. Maybe in the next couple weeks, the Russell is a little bit more precarious. The chance of it correcting all the way down here is very slim, but it's just not quite as bullish as the other indexes that we looked at thus far. But we're definitely still bull flagging, and we did not get a confirmation of trend change to the downside since we put in an inside candle last week. So I expect that probably this week we'll get even smaller range sideways type flagging action on the Russell. Let's look at Nasdaq. Nasdaq put in a new all-time high last week, looking extremely bullish. After putting in a potential Trend change candle last week, we did not manage to get a trend change to the downside, and we did put in a higher high and a higher low. So trend is still up. We do have a flat Tenkan-sen and a flat Kijun-sen below, reflecting the amount that we are extended above the cloud. We also do have a lower cloud into the first couple weeks of the year, so that's something to be aware of. But we do have a very strong rising cloud going into April. And a very thick cloud for support. So if we do get a pullback, this is really solid support going into the new year. After, say, the end of January, support gets much thicker for the Nasdaq. The flat Tenkan-sen asked for a potential pullback. If we do get a pullback or a correction to the downside, we're looking at first Tenkan-sen support at 47.6238. Let's move on to, what have I forgotten? I think I got all the indexes. Let's look at some bonds. This is a 30-year Treasury bond. We did get a green candle last week, which is, I'm sure, pretty exciting for people who already have a long bond position or who are trying to get long bonds. We didn't manage to get a trend change to the upside since we did put in an inside candle over last week's candle. We did put in a higher low, however, so there is also a flat Tenkan-sen above, so similar to the bullish charts that we were looking at prior to this. This is a bearish chart, but we're looking for potential for mean reversion back to the upside since we are so extended below the chart. Below the cloud. And also we have the RSI being quite oversold at this point. So a bounce to the upside would be quite healthy for bonds and other aspects of this chart that would ask for a reversion to the upside is we do have a rising cloud into the new year, and we have a flat cloud into like the middle of May, and then we have a cloud twist and a lower cloud. So we could get a bounce back, a little mean reversion back towards this flat bottom of the cloud, but it would take some work to get back into and over the cloud. It would really require a major correction in the dollar-yen or the yen, because really that has a lot to do with what's been driving bonds. Let's look at the 10-year. Similar to the 30-year, we see, we did put in a green candle. We do have a flat Tenkan-sen and a flat Kijun-sen asking for mean reversion to the upside. So I do expect a potential for a bounce on the bonds is pretty significant. A bounce, of course, that could be limited by the flat Tenkan-sen here at 126.23, and I personally would be looking to short at that point. That is a classic setup that I frequently use. I refer to it as the Tenkan Smackdown, and I'd be happy to explain that to you at another time, or you can look at one of my videos on YouTube describing that setup. All right, let's look at the metals. This is gold. Pardon all my fibs. I'm going to leave those. I think you can live with it for the time being. So this chart, gold is bearish as it is below the cloud. Last week we put in a doji, however, suggesting the potential for a reversion, trend change to the upside. We do have tweezer bottoms here also. So it's possible that we could get a bounce to the upside on gold. If we do also have a rising cloud, so there's plenty of space for price action to go as it heads up to the cloud before it meets resistance. However, the Chikou, this red line sticking out over here on the left, I could zoom out if you want to see more of the Chikou. This is the Chikou. The Chikou represents price action time shifted 26 periods into the past, so 26 weeks in this case. The Chikou is going to have resistance up here at the top of the cloud at 1176.60. So that is definitely a potential resistance point for gold if we do get a bounce to the upside. And then we do have cloud resistance up here. Sorry about that. at 12.04. If we were to break into the cloud, we do have potential resistance at the Tenkan Sen at 12.30, 130, but we will cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's look at silver. Silver had been holding up nicely and holding the top of the cloud very well, which had been more bullish than gold at that, in these past weeks. Then we got this nasty selling candle that lost the top of the cloud, but did manage to hold the bottom of the cloud. So things were looking okay for getting long silver there, but unfortunately for silver bulls, we found that we did put in a close under the cloud here. So it's not looking very good for silver here at the moment, as we are fully bearish in Ichimoku terms. We will look for signs of a possible bounce, but so far we don't really have any. If we do get a move to the upside, the Chikou is going to find resistance at the top of the cloud here at 1606. So that's going to be a potential resistance area if we do get a bounce. And then we also are going to have the cloud offering resistance. Let's see, next week it's going to be around 1680. If we manage to get into the cloud, it could also offer resistance at the top of the cloud also, which is, oh sorry, the top of the cloud's at 1680. The bottom of the cloud is like, it doesn't want to tell me. It's really hard. Can you tell I'm like suffering here because this strange shaped cloud is difficult to sort of guess where the next candle is going to be. So 1660 area is going to be resistant, and then the Tenkan Sen up here around 1734, but we can worry about those levels when we get closer to them. For now, trend is down, chart is bearish. We do have some hope going into the new year, if you want to be bullish on silver, is that we do have a rising cloud, and we do have a very flat cloud bottom, and flat cloud bottoms like to attract price back towards them. All flats in Ichimoku like to attract price. The closer price is to them, the more attractive they are. I think at this juncture it's a good time to look at the dollar-yen pair, as this is really having a huge effect on commodities. I was, if you've been following my videos for a while, I've been looking at various areas of resistance for the potential for the dollar-yen to pause, and it's just been powering higher and higher and higher. But at this point, 2 weeks ago, I think actually this is the new candle, 1220. Yeah, this is the new candle that's already open because Forex is already open right now. So last week we got a red candle and a lower high. So that is a sign of a potential for a pullback. Not sure how far we'll pull back, but it's significant. It hasn't happened in quite a long time, since the last red candle we got in dollar-yen was in the end of October. We are extended above the cloud. Usually when price makes a really strong and fast move through the cloud, especially with such an exuberant break above the cloud, it needs to mean revert. And the fact that we have a lower cloud and a flat cloud below makes it even more enticing for a potential pullback. So we do have support at the top of the cloud at 112.13, and then at the Tenkan Sen at 109.92. So I think that there's decent risk reward for a dollar-yen short here, but it's just, of course, scary because it's just been killing anyone that's tried to short it so far. But it's looking a little bit more receptive to the idea. We're also really overbought on the RSI here. So if you want to be long metals or other commodities, you really want to. We need to see the yen pick up against the dollar, and we all know that the Bank of Japan is happy to have the yen be weak. It's good for their economy for it to be so, but they could make any kind of decision at any point, as we know, and change the game here. So be on the lookout for any BOJ timely announcements. All right, and what else did I forget? We could look at the dollar by itself on the futures contract, the DX, putting in this massive meandering bull flag for over basically all of since the end of 2014. But now we are getting some signs that there is time for price action to take a little break. We have a flattening Tenkan-sen. We have price action being quite extended over the cloud. We have a thin cloud, and we have a cloud with a flat top. Those are all signs that it would be there's high potential for a correction to the downside. We also have the Kijun-sen pointing up sharply, and when I see this type of configuration with the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen, where the Tenkan-sen is flattening out, the Kijun-sen is pointing up strongly, I know that that means that the Kijun-sen is potentially trying to cross over the Tenkan-sen, and that is called a bear cross in Ichimoku terms. That is a bearish signal. If we do get that happening, then we can that would reinforce the potential for a short to work out here on the dollar. We do also have some tweezer tops here on the dollar, so we'll see. It's entirely possible that we're just going to get some more flagging action like we had here before this up move, you know. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to actually make at least one separate video for some stocks, so stay tuned for those, or check back on my YouTube channel. And you know, if you want to be notified when I do release new videos, it's a good idea to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you have any questions, you want to leave them in the comment section below. I'd be happy to try to answer them. And I would really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up. It will help me eventually if you like the video. If you don't like the video, I would love to hear that too, but I would really appreciate it if you explain to me, because it's, you know, it's not really useful to get a thumbs down and no explanation, right? Anyway, I guess, you know, getting thumbs up on YouTube helps with bandwidth issues in the future, so that's always good. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope you had a great holidays. Take it easy this week. You know, there's going to be all sorts of year-end tax selling, rebalancing, low volume. It could be potentially treacherous. Could be, you know, I would just chill, protect your funds, and you know, choose only really excellent setups. And we'll see you, let's see, I guess it will be in the new year the next time I make a weekly video, so I'll see you next year. Thanks again for tuning in, and good luck this week, and take care.